some real positive changes that people are trying to make happen in this city. And I think it's a good thing for all of us that are working here, living here, and it's really exciting.
And I like the way he put it all together. He says, we're going to do partnerships. And that's the key to things. So I think he really gave some hope to people, you know, and especially explaining, well, the monies that you're thinking, well, the city says they're broke or they don't have money, but this is earmarked money. It has been earmarked for a long time, just basically an educative kind of thing. And I thought it was really good.
Please welcome our mayor, Buddy Dyer.
Good afternoon. I'm Mayor Buddy Dyer, and I'd like to welcome you to the March 28, 2011 Orlando City Council meeting. We will begin today's proceeding with our invocation offered by Reverend Kirk Nowry, who is the Chief Strategic Officer for Hope Partners International, an organization whose mission is summarized in 6 words. And it's actually going to be 7, but we're not including the "and," which is sharing faith, giving hope, and showing love. Reverend Nowry served for 18 years as a youth pastor, an executive pastor, and senior pastor of a multicultural megachurch in Miami, and then served as chief operating officer for Samaritan's Purse, which is an international Christian relief organization that provides aid for victims of war and natural disaster, prior to joining Hope Partners. And from 83 to 85, he was the chaplain for the Miami Dolphins, and he is the author of 7 books. After the invocation, will be led in the Pledge of Allegiance by District 2 Commissioner Tony Ortiz. Pastor.
Let's bow our heads for prayer. Father, we come to you this afternoon and we pray for the leadership of the President of our nation as he speaks to us tonight. We pray for his wisdom, and we pray, Father, that you will guide his thoughts as he represents us across the nation and even here in Orlando. I pray, Father, for our mayor and for these commissioners. I ask, Father, that you give them a discerning mind and that you give them merciful hearts. For, Father, they represent people in this city who are hurting and broken and that need hope. I pray, Father, that we would honor you in every decision that is made, that we would remember that the purest of religion is that which cares for the widows and the orphans. I pray, Father, for communities like Bithlo, for citizens like Tim McKinney and United Global Outreach and the work that they are doing simply to extend a caring hand to those that are suffering. And I pray today, Father, for my friend John Barber, one citizen in our city. Give him courage and strength and healing. I pray all of this, Father, remembering that you guide every thought and every heart. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We'll now call the meeting to order. Madam Clerk, would you call the roll and make a determination of a quorum, please?
Commissioner Diamond? Here. Commissioner Ortiz? Here. Commissioner Stewart?
Here.
Commissioner Sheehan?
Here.
Commissioner Lineham? Here. Commissioner Ings?
Here.
Mayor Dyer?
Here.
Mayor, you have a quorum.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Let's take up for consideration the minutes of the March 7th, 2011 Agenda Review and City Council meeting.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Lineham, second by Commissioner Sheehan. Is there... Let's see. Let's just go ahead and vote on that. All in favor of the motion indicate so by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. All right, we are right into awards presentations and recognitions. Marcia, can you come up and give an intro related to the MLK Humanitarian Awards?
Yes, I will, Mayor. Thank you very much, Mayor Dyer and City Commissioners. It is with pleasure that I introduce a great group of individuals who've been working on your behalf as members of the MLK, the Mayor's Martin Luther King Commission, and they sponsored this year more than 10 activities that they directly were involved in, and then produced a calendar and involved and recruited others for more than 20 plus other activities in our community that they help promote and to make our community aware of. These individuals have been meeting since August, had about 20 meetings over that time period, and I'd like to ask the members of the MLK Commission to stand. In the interest of time, I won't call all of their names, but I'd like for them to stand for recognition. These individuals, Mayor and Commissioners, represent a number of organizations, and I think Ed told me to hit the space bar. Is that right, Ed? I think that I need to, there we go. There are a number of organizations that sponsor the activities of the MLK Commission. This year, the commissioners raised over $60,000 to support all of these activities so that they could be done totally with sponsorship. And these are our sponsors, starting with our signature, which is OUC, this is their third year as our signature sponsor, I think, Corey, and they are followed by all of the Mayor's Circle, Leaders Circle, Dr. King's Circle, the Dr. King supporters, and all of these sponsors help to make this possible. And we just want to thank our sponsors as well, because the activities would not have been successful, and they were. This year we had the largest attendance ever at some of the events, like the parade and the interfaith service this year. So thank you, Commissioners. Congratulations. And at this time, I'd like to introduce Brandy Hand, who is co-chair of the Mayor's MLK Commission with Cressida Jackson. And Brandy is going to introduce the Humanitarian Award winners. Brandy?
Thank you, Marcia. Mayor, on behalf of the Commission, we thank you for giving us the privilege of supporting our community through the works of the Commission. And to the rest of the City Commissioners, we thank you for your attendance and participation at all of the events throughout the holiday weekend. Today, it is my privilege to introduce to you some of the humanitarians who were able to be with us, even though it is Orange County spring break. As I call your name, please stand and be recognized. Also, the humanitarians were selected on the basis of the content of their character. Grades had nothing to do with this award. Most of these kids do have great grades, but they are good kids. They represent the ideals of Dr. King: freedom, peace, harmony, justice, and liberty for all. Joshua Haith, Megan Cantor, Lorena Morton, Brianna Davis, Nicholas Woods, Paulos Minos, Rachel Bell, Juliana Fowler, Tiana Moore, Joy Gilmer, Juan Gonzalez, Mary Hill, and Noel Ruddick. In addition, this year, thanks to the generosity of our sponsors, and in particularly the generosity of AirTran Airways and Gaylord National Hotel, the Commission created an essay contest. As many of you know, the Dr. King Memorial opens August 28th. We have given an essay contest to middle schools and high school of our humanitarians, and we have selected 2 winners who win an all-expense trip paid to visit the memorial. At this time, I'd like to ask Joshua Haith from Bridgewater Middle and Joy Gilmer from Winter Park High to please stand and be recognized as our essay winners. We will be posting copies of the winning essays on the website, and we'll provide a copy to each one of the commissioners later. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, we did pictures beforehand upstairs. Do we want to do another group picture, Marcia?
Yes, Mayor, if we may, if we
Okay.
could, with the commissioners. Thank you. If everyone would come up, the commissioners and also the humanitarians, if you would please come up and take a picture, group picture with Mayor Dyer and your city commissioners.
How you get in there?
For those of you who haven't, check your cell phone and make sure it's on vibrate or silent. And we will move right into the mayor's update. I want to start with some recognition for our police chief. Chief Demings was one of just a few, Chief, wave over there, just a few law enforcement officers that was invited by the United States Attorney General Eric Holder to D.C. last week to talk about a new officer safety initiative because of the spike in violence related to officers, and we've seen that in our very own state with the deaths of several police officers in St. Petersburg and a couple other cities. So, Chief, I'm sure you had an impact with the Attorney General, and we appreciate you representing the city so well in D.C. Thank you. Later this week, I'll be joined by the Orange County Library System Board President, Rich Maldecki, and various other leaders as we launch two new programs, Mayor Buddy's Book Club and a expansion of the Compact program. And they are the first two programs that will be launched as part of our City of Orlando CARES initiative. And Marcia is doing a great job with the grant that we received from the Bloomberg Foundation last June, and empowering the Orlando CARES initiative under our Cities of Service Coalition. It's been a while since we've had a city council meeting, and there has been a lot happening on the international scene. Since our last meeting, Japan obviously experienced a very devastating earthquake followed by a tsunami, and then issues related to their nuclear reactors. And we have a sister city, Urayasu, in Japan, which is probably one of our very most active sister city relationships. And they were about 250 miles from the epicenter of the earthquake. And I've had a lot of people ask me about how Urayasu fared during the disasters. And we understand that they had a tremendous amount of infrastructure damage that will probably take years to replace or repair, but we are relieved to know that there were very few injuries and no deaths in our sister city. People have asked about how they might help, and in any regard with the Japan disaster relief efforts, the best way is to go through the American Red Cross, and you can designate your funds for relief there. Also, since I had our last meeting, I had the pleasure of joining 10 of our community leaders on a Metro Orlando EDC trip, trade mission and business development mission to Israel. And Israel is known for their innovation and entrepreneurship in many different areas that coincide with the industries that we're developing or have developed here in Central Florida. And we had an opportunity to meet with representatives from the U.S. Embassy, but then industry leaders in life science and pharmaceutical, aviation, simulation, and the defense industry. We also had an opportunity to pay a visit on one of our twin cities, Kiryat Matskin, and that relationship has been developed through the efforts of the Jewish Federation of Greater Orlando, and we hope to grow that relationship. Probably the most significant deliverable that came immediately out of the trip relates to Florida Hospital. Lars Howman, who's the president and CEO of the hospital, and Tony Nicholson, who is the benefactor and board chair of the Nicholson Center for Surgery, signed a memorandum of understanding with Sheba Medical Center, which is the most comprehensive hospital in Israel and actually in the Middle East, and they have joined forces for a collaboration and a strategic relationship in a number of different areas, including robotic surgery, and there will be a direct transfer of knowledge and relationships, and should be a great partnership between Sheba Florida Hospital. We also met with Teva Pharmaceuticals, which is one of the largest generic drug manufacturers in the world. Semagon, which is a leader in simulation and training and is actually headquartered here in the U.S. in Orlando at the Research Park. El Al, we talked to them about a direct flight from Tel Aviv to Orlando. We visited Siemens Concentrated Solar Power, which is a leader in the solar panel power generation. Most interesting thing about that visit was they remarked how Spain has embraced solar technology as a large part of their power system, but in doing so, they now have three of the five leading solar power companies in the entire world because they embrace new technology. And I kind of think about what we could have had we been able to embrace high-speed rail and been the leader in the United States in that regard, and the opportunities for the economic development and manufacturing that would have been associated with that. Carmenza from the EDC led the trip, and I think there will be a lot of fruitful relationships that actually bear fruit in the near future. I also had the opportunity on the heels of that to join the Central Florida Partnerships region-to-region visit at Salt Lake City, and we were in Salt Lake City about 48 hours. And if anybody ever tells you that transit and commuter rail will only work in New York City, tell them to go visit Salt Lake City, because it is the best example I've seen about how both light rail and commuter rail can transform a community. They have not one but 5 rail systems currently underway that after they are completed, they will have 1 million people within 1,000 steps of high-quality public transit. And it didn't happen overnight. There's a lot of people working together, mayors and city councils up and down each of the commuter lines. And think about this. 8 years ago, 30% of the buildings in downtown Salt Lake City were boarded up. And now downtown Salt Lake City has $5 billion worth of redevelopment projects, employing in excess of 1,200 people per day, and has the second largest downtown redevelopment project going on in the United States. We also visited a project called Daybreak, which is being built 20 miles outside the core downtown, but is connected by commuter rail to the downtown, and it's about 4 times the size of Baldwin Park. And at each stop along that commuter rail, there's transit-oriented development that is occurring right now. And probably the best example I can give you is the University of Utah has between faculty, staff, and student body about 50,000 people. And prior to commuter rail coming to Salt Lake City, they had an immense parking problem with a lot of surface lots that were crowded, overflow parking into the neighborhoods. Bernie Machen, who's the president of the University of Florida, was president of Utah at the time and worked to get 4 commuter rail stops on that campus. And now over a third of the faculty, staff, and students ride the train to the school, and they've been able to convert several of the surface parking lots that used to be overcrowded into new engineering buildings and medical buildings on the campus. So, great example of what we can look forward to in Central Florida when we build Sunrail. A couple of items of note on the agenda under Business and Financial Services number 10, an extension of our red light camera program that has been extremely successful. In the first year, we saw a 33% reduction in crashes at the monitored intersection, and in 18 months, that was up to 39% and a 50% reduction in injuries at the monitored intersection. And then I want to mention 2 housing items. F1 is our final commitment to the men's shelter at the Coalition for the Homeless. We are contributing $1.6 million in CDB funds towards the design and construction of the Men's Service Center. And then a very successful program, the federal government has redistributed NSP funding to the cities and communities that have done well with NSP 1 and NSP 2. And we are now receiving an NSP 3 grant of a little over $3 million, which will be used to purchase and rehabilitate homes that are in foreclosure or short sale. Commissioner Ortiz on the east side of town. With that, we will move on to the consent agenda, and the consent agenda is a number of items that are acted upon through a single vote of council, and we give each of our council members an opportunity to comment on items on the consent agenda, as well as to update you on things of importance from their individual commission districts. And we rotate the order in which we go first, and today it is Commissioner Ortiz, District 2.
Thank you, Mayor. Right on. On March 9th, I visited the UCF Orlando Incubator office located on District 2. It's amazing what we have over there. It's filled to capacity, and the companies that we have over there, they're amazing. I had a presentation from each one of those companies, and there's, I'm so impressed, and there's no wonder is UCF the #1 incubator program in the nation. These guys are just astounding. I just want to make sure that they do learn about the opportunities we have in the city and how we can pair them up with different programs, because they are for sure going to bring great business to our community. Very proud of UCF and very proud of this incubator program. I want to thank Ms. Melissa Wazerman for the hospitality and for arranging this meeting. And I also want to thank Kim King for serving as a great liaison between us and the program. I want to thank District 2 neighborhood leaders who attended our meeting on March 10th. We exchanged a great deal of information pertinent to our community. Things are moving right along. It was a great meeting, so I want to thank all of them. Mayor, I want to thank you for visiting our Ventura Sunshine Ladies. It was a great day. They were very excited and honored to have you there, and they appreciate the interaction that you had with them. It was very healthy for our community. On March the 18th, we had a monumental day on our district, District 2. It was the Cimarron Wall groundbreaking ceremony, the beginning of the realization of our vision plan. So they have already started building our wall, and I'm very happy for our community. I want to thank Byron Brooks. I want to thank Commissioner Diamond, Commissioner Stewart for coming over, our staff also for being there that day. Mayor, I know that you couldn't do it because you were out of the state, but we appreciate you sending representation to represent you, of course. It was a great day in our community, and everybody's excited. There's only good news coming down the line. This past Saturday was a very busy one. In the morning, we had at the Englewood Community Center, we hosted the Neighborhood Works America and the FAMU School of Law for a foreclosure scam alert canvassing. A representative from the FDIC was also present, close to 50 volunteers, all students from FAMU School of Law, which I'm very proud we have it here in our city, canvassed the Azalea Park and Englewood Park area, letting homeowners know about the different scams that are currently going on out there. It's pretty sad that there's scam artists taking advantage of victims of foreclosure and taking advantage of people who are struggling with their finances. I want to thank Professor Ana Ceballos for the opportunity to be part of this great function, and I also want to thank Orange County Commissioner Louis Damiani for attending the event. I attended the 4th annual La Prensa Hispanic Women Who Make a Difference Award luncheon. I presented them with a proclamation from the City of Orlando. once again, my congratulations to all the winners. I'd like to make a special request to our community, though. And this has to do with Lynx. Lynx recently installed shelters, bus shelters all around our city. And they look very nice, and they provide shelter to our seniors and our kids when they're waiting for the bus. That's a very important item that we have needed and for a long period of time. What I cannot understand is why we already have people, whoever they are, writing graffiti on these shelters. I don't understand where their pride is, but I want to call upon the community. So if they see anybody doing this, to please call the police immediately. If it's on their hands to stop whoever's doing this, to please do it. But otherwise, to call the police. And I expect and I hope from the police that there is zero tolerance with these individuals, because we are moving ahead with a city that's probably the most beautiful city in the whole United States, and we don't need this kind of graffiti in our shelters or anywhere for that matter. In reference to item F1 for the Coalition for the Homeless, I'm very happy to see that we're moving forward with that, Mayor. We received an email from Mr. Cowherd asking us to demand that the Coalition for the Homeless has records. They already have records, Mr. Cowherd, and they're complying with everything that you're asking for here. We will continue making sure that they provide this information and that they continue doing a good job around their coalition area. They're working with the Orlando Police Department hand in hand, and I believe they're doing a good job to the best of their knowledge and capacities. And in reference to item F2, I want to thank you once again, Mayor, for helping us, because this is part of helping us revitalizing our district, being able to fill all these homes that are empty. I want to thank Ms. Leila Allen and the staff from housing. They've been great through the whole process. And last but not least, I'd like to congratulate a good friend and former partner. He's not here. I was hoping that he was going to be here today. Used to be lieutenant, now he's Captain John Mina from the Orlando Police Department. He was recently promoted. He is a great asset, Chief, and not only because he's my friend, but he is a 10-8 police officer, so congratulations. And I want to congratulate you too, Chief, for your achievement. Thank you. That's it. That's all I have, Mayor.
Thank you, Commissioner. We'll move to District 3, Commissioner Stewart.
Thank you, Mayor. And I also want to extend my congratulations to Captain Mina and personal thanks to Captain Metzger for the work that he has done in the last 3 years over in North Patrol. I had a chance to visit with Captain Mina and got a chance to hear all the stories about former officer Tony Ortiz, his former partner. So I think I won't have any problem getting any of Tony's votes from now on in the future. No, he's a great man, and I'm really excited about the fact that he's going to be in a greater leadership role. So congratulations to him. I also want to say thank you to Kathy DeVault. In the midst of what's going on in terms of Urasu City, she did a great job being aggressive and trying to make sure they knew our concern for Urasu and working with the Mayor Matsusaki. So I appreciate that, and so please extend my personal thanks to Kathy. There's not a whole lot that we can do. They have not asked for a whole lot from us, but I think the worst that we can do is continue to keep Japan in our prayers and provide as much assistance as we possibly can to them. A couple things coming up in the district. Lou Gardens is going to host our public meeting entitled Growing in the Garden. We talked about this several months ago, and the meeting in February got moved to March 29th at 7 o'clock. So if you're interested in coming and learning about the master plan for Lou Gardens, please come and attend. It'll take place in the Camellia Room on March 29th this week at 7 p.m. This week, we're excited also to complete the trail around Lake Baldwin in cooperation with the City of Winter Park. We have finished the Lake Baldwin Trail that goes through Fleet Peoples Park. Orlando took the opportunity to expand the final 2 sidewalk segments in our city limits that were 5 feet to a trail width of now 12 feet. So that will continue and connect to the trail through the park that Winter Park accomplished. So it's a project that we worked on in 2006. Mr. Euler and Alan Euler and I tried to work on that. It's estimated that more than 100,000 people per year utilize this trail around Lake Baldwin. And so we're excited about that, and we'll get a chance to dedicate that this week. I also want to send a special thanks and appreciate the work of our city staff, Jeff Arms and Roger Cox, for their work in making this move so quickly and completing Orlando's piece. Also this weekend on April 2nd from 8 to noon, EPAS is hosting a shredding and electronics recycling event in the parking lot of the old Amway Arena. Shredding is one of those things that we work closely with in terms of Neighborhood Watch to make sure that it provides the best of personal security. So we ask anybody who's interested to come on out and bring their items so they can be personally shredded, as well as getting rid of some electronic equipment that you have there. Also, I want to say a special thanks to Kim Laskoff and to Kyle Shepard and to Kathy Russell. Tomorrow, there will be a hearing for the secondary metals recycling changes to the state law. Excited to see that they have taken much of the work that we have done here now and will be incorporated in a new state law. And so I'm really excited about that, but it's just a compliment to our staff that when this stuff begins to get up in Tallahassee, if Tallahassee will do something for our benefit, we get a chance to recognize those that were so involved in it. And so I appreciate Kim and Kyle and Kathy taking that lead up in Tallahassee. So thank you very much and good luck. On the agenda today, besides those things we've already mentioned, F1 and F2, I'd also like to mention today on C7, we'll be completing the facade grant for Fairview Marina. They are making some really great changes up there, and they'll be making some changes to their signage out on 441, and that's a wonderful asset to our community, and so I'm excited about being able to take that facade grant and to apply a little bit to help them out as well. And that's all that I have, Mayor.
Thank you, Commissioner. We'll move to District 4. Commissioner Sheehan.
Well, thank you, Mayor. A couple things that have happened in District 4 since the last meeting. The Colonial Town Game Room and Learning Center is open at the Colonial Town Neighborhood Center. I want to thank Alex Martins, Debbie Rios Barnes, Linda Lanham Gonzalez from the Magic for making this happen. It's an absolutely beautiful facility, and a lot of the kids in my after-school program in Colonial Town are from Callahan and Paramore and do use that after-school facility, and they really have a really nice learning center now because of the Magic. We want to thank them for that. And Nikki Purvis for overseeing the construction. She's the manager there at the Colonial Town Center, and Turner Construction for just doing a beautiful job. So we'll have some pictures hopefully next meeting. But if you see it on Orange TV, that is me dancing with Bo Outlaw to the Wii, and I beat him. So I guess I can't dance better than Bo, but I can't play basketball better than Bo. In Coy Town, energy audits are continuing. Some of the households in Coy Town actually had $400 a month power bills, and there's a perception somehow that the concrete block homes, are better homes, but we're finding that they're the ones with no insulation, jalousie windows, and things like that. So, if anybody's having issues or problems, we can help you coordinate. So please call the office at 407-246-2004 if you need any help with that. I have a special guest here today from the Area C Bike Park. Nathaniel Jaffe and his mom Diane are here. Nathaniel, stand up. Nathaniel is one of my best volunteers at the Area C Mountain Bike Park. He's been working on the moguls over there, and he lives adjacent to the park, and he's one of my best volunteers. So please give it up for Nathaniel, because he's done an awesome job. And Diane, thanks for bringing him here today. It's one thing, and he's also a student at the Center for Leadership Academy, so a lot of things that we've been doing have actually been helping the kids in the neighborhood, and we're delighted to see Nathaniel here. And, it's one thing when you come up with a crazy idea like a mountain bike park and how are we going to do it, like the skateboard park we had before and everything like that, and we see that the kids are actually utilizing these facilities, and we've had hundreds of volunteers out. And I did have a picture, which unfortunately I didn't get ready, but there was a big kid that broke in to ride at the mountain bike park. Commissioner Stewart was out there on the moguls. I seen pictures, and I'm bringing that to this.
I didn't break in. They let me in, but I didn't last very long.
Yeah, Commissioner Stewart actually rode the moguls. I learned my lesson at the skate park
Commissioner Stewart, and I almost broke a hip, so I didn't try the mountain bike park, but the kids are having a great time on there. It's not open yet. We're just doing volunteer days out there to go finish up the cleanup and stuff, but there's actually a nature trail and moguls there, and judging just from the success of the people who've been coming to the cleanup, it's going to be a very, very popular park. And, we've been doing it with a lot of volunteer efforts, and want to thank especially Nathaniel, I guess, who's here on spring break and coming to a city council meeting, which I applaud his mom for making him do. I also want to recognize Mrs. Matilda Roman, one of my shining stars in District 4, celebrated her 99th birthday 2 weeks ago. So Ms. Roman is still volunteering with the city. She was surrounded by her friends and family a couple weeks ago to celebrate that birthday, but we want to shout out to Matilda Roman. She's been working with the kids at Reeves Terrace for many, many years, and 99 years young, and you can't stop Ms. Roman. She's always out there working in the community, so we want to definitely recognize her too. On item B10, I'm really hoping that we can continue with the red light running cameras. It's been tremendously successful and has saved lives, and I think it's a shame that the legislature is looking to monkey with that legislation that's so critically important to save lives. I see that Lynx is here today. We have the locally preferred east-west route on the agenda today, item C11, and I want to thank them for the lot of public hearings that they did. Ginger was very involved in doing a lot of public hearings throughout the city, and I think we've come up with a route that will really serve a lot of the public, so thank you for dealing with all of our constituents and all of their input and putting that all together. On item item I2, sorry about that, that is the E-Verify employment eligibility. It's a good program. The only concern that I've got is applying this retroactively to our signal improvements, and it seems like Governor Scott's Let's Get to Work moniker has become Let's Stop Work on a lot of these projects. So I think it's really critically important that we move forward on these projects and quit coming up with silly state bureaucracies that will slow these projects down, because they are very, very important to our traffic signal improvements. And that's all I had, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. We'll move on to District 5. Commissioner Lineham.
Thank you, Mayor Dyer. Just a few announcements, and I was happy to hear you talk about light rail and commuter rail. And I punched Commissioner Sheehan, and we were in Salt Lake City, I think just 4 or 5 years ago, to experience the light rail. And even in 1999, when I worked very hard here in the city for light rail, and of course moving on to commuter rail. But my first experience with commuter rail was in 1968 when I attended Bryn Mawr College just outside of Philadelphia. And it's just such a shame that we're supposed to be so progressive and actually to be so backwards here in our community of not moving forward. And the minute we get a little energy, things seem to happen. So I'm hoping that we can keep Sunrail alive, come back to pick up our light rail and, of course, our high-speed rail, if we really want jobs. If we're going to stop all these jobs, who are they targeting? Is this some kind of crazy situation going on here in our state? But not only Salt Lake City, but Portland and Dallas and other areas. So I'm very proud of the work we have put forward on the rail and the work that you have performed. So great job. And for our friends in Japan, I want to express my sincere thanks to Tatako Johnson, who was our liaison with Japan. And I know I was there in Ieyasu in 1999, and I've sent a letter to the mayor and the citizens when we had a chance to visit Disney that's located in that city just outside of Tokyo. So, you know, our better persons in us and our best wishes and prayers go out to the Japan and to its people. A couple of announcements about the National League of Cities. We were there just a few weeks ago, and and I talked to Byron about this very, very briefly before coming into council, and I mentioned it before. There is an enterprise program sponsored through the National League of Cities that I'm hoping Alan and Byron would talk to him later regarding that piece in your yard between your house, sewer, and water and the street, that if anything happens to it, it costs a lot of money to get it repaired. And there is an insurance that through the National League of Cities, if cities adopt this program, that will only cost us $50 a year Of course, sometimes you can live in your house forever and nothing ever happens. But it's good to have an insurance that costs only $50 a year, and I'm ready to pay because I've already had something happen. I've been in my house almost 40 years, so if you stay there long enough, something will happen. And I'm hoping that between Byron and Kevin and Alan Euler, that we can work something out with the National League of Cities, get on board with this enterprise program so that the residents in Orlando will have this great protection. It is a great program. It's great for families, great for people who own their homes, or even folks who own rental properties. The other situation that occurred in D.C., the National League of Cities, other than the First Lady talking to us about moving our young people, this most gorgeous, beautiful woman I've ever seen was our speaker. But the other piece that really gets my attention and should get yours, there is, and we met with about 15 Congress members, or 10, I don't know how many, but I met with some others at other programs regarding broadband technology, but there is a provider tax attached to stand-alone children hospitals that could literally shut these hospitals down. And that concerns me when we're talking about the health care of our children. And there is an agenda item regarding, I think it was D2, just dealing with children's cancer cure research. And when I think of what's going on, it's just a very mean, hateful way to deal with issues in this country, is to tax a hospital that could close it down for children services. And I'm hoping that we get a chance. I know I've already talked to Florida Hospital, even though they don't have one, but Nemours come to mind, and of course, Orange Memorial, what's the name of that? Yeah, Arnold Palmer. I've been around forever. I still call it Orange Memorial. But that concerns us, and it should concern all of us who've not only had diseases and sicknesses, but for our children and the care of our children. We need to talk to our Congress people about this, and this is no reason to be that mean and that critical. So on those issues, but thank you on that. Now for the agenda, I will vote no on B3. I just don't see going to a Texas company. I'm still just locally focused, and Texas is big and mean and wants to secede from the union. So why would we give them business? They don't even want to be a part of the country. So I just cannot support that agenda item. And on B12, I know I talked to Byron, and we are going to move forward with the Wellsville improved parking lot. That's in the making. I'm voting no also on B15. There is just a $100,000 difference between the local company and, let's see which one is that, and the other company, just St. Paul, Minnesota. Is that the state where Michelle Bachmann is from? Gee, why are we going to do business there? I just have a problem. These are jobs that we need to keep here, and $100,000 to me is nothing in comparison to making sure our workforce is stable. And on C10, now that one was kind of interesting because I wondered whether we were going to use federal funds. And with our governor taking away so many federal funds, I am still curious, Mayor Dyer, whether all of our federal funds will be swept out of the state of Florida. And if that's the case, how do we manage some of these great programs from CDBG and other situations? I think residents have got to start speaking up in the state of Florida to make sure that we are the great state we have come to be. We are not pre-Civil War, and we're not seceding from the Union. So another item, I wanted us to track that I-2. I heard Commissioner Sheehan speak to it, but that program could cost us more money. And if it costs us more money, We're not getting more jobs. The things we're doing that cost more money. What's going on in Florida? Somebody has got to have an IQ over 30 to deal with some of these issues and speak up. It's just really getting the best of me in terms of my own emotions. And on agenda item F1, we're glad to see that project move forward. I am asking my aide to send all the information on the Homeless Coalition over to Mount Zion Baptist Church. We met there just a few weeks ago with the Focus program that we are all so familiar with, and to make sure they are fully briefed and informed about what we're doing. I think that's pretty much it for now for District 5. Thank you very much, Mayor.
Thank you, Commissioner. We'll move on to District 6. Commissioner Ings.
Thank you, Mayor. Excuse me. We get right to the agenda. Item B10. This is obviously a great opportunity for us to still provide for safety and welfare of our citizens and visitors into our Orlando community. So this is one piece that I definitely support. And the 5 new approaches hit new intersections that are so important because these intersections are very busy in the International Drive area. And then obviously the C11 piece, a lot of thought went into that, and we just thank you so much for everything that you've done with that, and still getting some feedback, some real feedback from the public. And Mayor and Commissioners, I have put on your desk there the first annual tribute to our fallen stars, and this is from the Central Florida chapter of Concerns of Police Survivors, or COPS. And there was a football game that was held as a benefit with the Osceola Rattlers and the Tampa Bay Bulldogs. That was held Saturday, March the 19th at 5 p.m. at Oak Ridge High School, Lee Leonard Stadium here in Orlando. And this event was supported by Sheriff Demings and the Central Florida chapter of Concerned Police Survivors. And their mission is to provide resources to assist in the rebuilding of the lives of surviving families and affected co-workers of law enforcement officers killed in the line of duty as determined by federal criteria. And COPS provides training to law enforcement agencies on survivor victimization issues and educates the public of the need to support the law enforcement profession and its survivors. And so this annual football program was done in conjunction with the Osceola Rattlers Amateur Football Club and its first annual tribute to our fallen stars. It was very well attended to. The support of the Sheriff's Department was there. This Central Florida area goes into Polk County, Brevard County, Lake County, Osceola County, Orange County, and it also lists the names of police officers whose end of watch ended at a certain time in their career and in their lives. So this is an event that I would support in its continuum, and it's a great tribute to those families and survivors, and specifically the co-workers too. A lot of times we forget about the co-workers, but the co-workers do suffer as it relates to the loss of a fallen officer. And then on March 26th, this past Saturday, at 7 a.m. to 10 a.m., I sponsored the Holden Heights Take It to the Curb Day. Solid waste, and many of our city leaders, specifically Byron Brooks, CAO, who was dressed out in his shorts and had his vest and pickup stick and was picking up trash along Paramore Avenue and along Avondale streets, along with Chief Miller and Assistant Chief Earl Yeoman. And thanks to also to Jan Rahill and Jody Goosetree and code enforcement, Mike Rhodes and his people, and also OFD Station Number 5. They came over and provided some activities for the youth throughout the event. We picked up a lot of property there. Sofas were taken to the curb. The big claw trucks came by and picked them up. And what we're trying to do is really help keep Holden Heights beautiful and clean and get rid of a lot of the big ticket items that they have stored in and around the house. As a matter of fact, Byron said that he was surprised that many of the areas that they were cleaning up were already clean. So that's good to know that the people are still working hard to try to keep their neighborhoods clean. And then after that event, from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m., we had the Spring Fling event. And this was a community event that was also hosted by Reverend Arnold Porter with the St. Paul AME Church and many others within the community. And we stayed for fun games and also hamburgers and hot dogs for the kids. And other community programs were there to assist the families, and we had lots of kids there, which was just really great, and it was an opportunity for us to showcase things for the kids so that the kids can feel like they are part of the community as well. So that was a great event too. And then on Sunday, I had the occasion to present the Larry Dorsey award for an appreciation for Reverend Larry Dorsey, who is a member of the community and really a childhood friend of mine, and we've kind of grown up together. And he was at the Southwest Boys and Girls Club when I was on the police department, and invited me to come and be a part of the advisory board for the Boys and Girls Club. But Reverend Dorsey had been raising a lot of the kids from Carver Shores through his programs, the football and basketball games and teams that he's had throughout the years. And he's been in that community for 19 years working with the kids. And it was a pleasure really seeing some of the kids that have grown up and have families now of their own. And they talked about how Reverend Dorsey made an impact in their lives. And when they made bad choices, that's exactly what happened to them. And we had one guy that talked about the bad choice that he made and how he went into the criminal life, but now he's back and doing the right thing. But he's thankful to Reverend Dorsey for assisting him. So that was a event that took place at Mount Calvary Missionary Baptist Church there in District 6 with Reverend Gaines, the pastor, and Reverend Dorsey's wife and family were there also on hand. And that's all I have, Mayor.
Thank you, Commissioner, and we will move to District 1. Commissioner Diamond.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, I would also like to send out my thoughts to all the folks in Japan and thank everybody from our community that's responded to helping out, whether it's through the workplace, through the Red Cross, or wherever, and encourage people to do that and keep all the folks in Japan in your thoughts and prayers. Also, I would like to congratulate the folks on the Martin Luther King Commission for all the good work they did, and I wanted to give a special shout out to a couple of kids from District 1 who got awards, Sierra Cotton from Blankner and Brianna Davis from Odyssey Middle School. We recently had our spring district picnic and food drive to benefit Second Harvest Food Bank. That was on March 19th. We had a super turnout. People got a chance to learn more about the city with activities like neighborhood watch programs that they can get involved with. Community organizations like the Science Center had a chance to let people know about things they were doing, and it was just a good day. We collected a tremendous amount of food and cash and donations for Second Harvest, and glad to see that and appreciate everybody that turned out. I would also like to give a special thank you to everybody that helped out, most especially my assistant, Jeannie Wilson, for a terrific job in putting together the picnic for many times. I also wanted to mention, I recently was able to take a tour of a couple of homes in District 1 that our housing department had helped out. One was with our neighborhood stabilization program. The housing department is taking a house that was in foreclosure fixing it up, taking a house that really had some issues. I think it would have been a problem for the neighborhood over time, and by fixing it up and ultimately getting someone else in there, turning it into something that'll be good for the neighborhood. We also looked at a house where the housing department had done the improvements under the POWER program, which is a program where the city and the Orlando Utilities Commission are working together to make energy improvements in people's homes. And it was great to see that, great to see the improvements, and that's something that'll also help our neighborhoods as well. I wanted to congratulate the Downtown Main Street program. They recently started a coffee club, or are looking into starting a coffee club program. This is a great opportunity for local businesses and citizens to network, get to know each other, learn about things happening in the community. And I was glad to be there at the first one, and I hope to see many more good ones happening after that. I also want to congratulate Boone High School. They had a green-up on March 19th. They had a tremendous turnout of students. The campus looks great after all the work they did, and I want to congratulate the principal, the students, the faculty, our Orlando Green Up team that was out there helping them out, helping to organize that. They really did a nice job, so it's great to see that happening over at Boone High School. And on the agenda, I'll just mention one item. That's item C11, which is the selection of an east-west route for our circulator system. That's something we've been talking about for some time now, and I think it's something that a lot of people would like to see happen, where you can get on the circulator system and go from Paramore to Thornton Park, to the northern side of downtown, the southern side of downtown, and hopefully that'll just expand over time so more and more people can use the system and have a great opportunity to ride and benefit from the system. So that's all I have, Mayor. Thank you.
Okay, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Sheehan, second by Commissioner Ings. All in favor of the motion indicate so by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? And so the motion carries. That will bring us to the CRA meeting. So we will recess the City Council meeting without objection. And we will convene the CRA meeting. And actually, Thomas, I don't see Thomas, but I think I can handle the meeting minutes probably. The only item on the agenda is approval of the meeting minutes of the CRA for February 28th, 2011. Motion by Commissioner Lineham, second by Commissioner Sheehan. All in favor of the motion indicate so by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, so the motion carries, and we will adjourn the CRA meeting, and we will reconvene the City Council meeting. That brings us to hearings, ordinances on second reading. Madam Clerk, if you would read number 1.
An ordinance of the City of Orlando, Florida relating to neighborhood improvement districts, amending Chapter 40, Orlando City Code to enact the Orlando Neighborhood Improvement District Code, authorizing the subsequent creation of local government neighborhood improvement districts, providing certain limitations on and procedures for the creation of such districts, providing general regulations relating to such districts, providing for severability, repeal of conflicting ordinances, codification, correction of scrivener's errors, and an effective date.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Diamond, second by Commissioner Stewart. All right, Brooke, can you give us an overview? And then I think we have a proposed amendment.
Mayor, Commissioners, just a quick follow-up on the presentation that you heard on the 7th. Again, today we are asking for your consideration of the NID enabling ordinance, Neighborhood Improvement District Enabling Ordinance, that will allow for the creation of neighborhood improvement districts throughout the city. Just to take you back a little bit, in October, City Council approved the Downtown South NID Exploratory Committee report, and you directed staff to prepare 2 ordinances, one being an enabling ordinance allowing for the creation of NIDs, and the second being an ordinance specific to Downtown South. And I won't spend a lot of time going through all of this because you just heard it a couple of weeks ago, but Just a quick update on the NID statutes, we are proposing some changes at the state level, and I think on Wednesday, Kyle? It looks like on Wednesday we might make some further progress on that, and that just cleans up the NID statute at the state level. With regards to the NID enabling ordinance that is before you, it establishes City Council as the governing board, requires an advisory council, allows new neighborhood improvement districts only after approval has been recommended by the NID Exploratory Committee. And the previous ordinance shows a cap on the total number of Main Street NIDs in non-Main Street NIDs in the city. The amendment that is currently shown on your council agenda item, and I think the amendment that Commissioner Stewart is going to propose would actually remove that cap in its entirety. So if you'd like, Mayor, would it be best to maybe talk about the amendment now?
I think so. Is everybody pretty well briefed on the rest of the ordinance other than, do you have questions for Brooke, or are we ready to move into the amendatory process? Commissioner Sheehan?
Yeah, I just had one. I mean, we did the cap because there was concern about having adequate staff time to be able to administer all of that. If the cap is removed, would you all be able to administer
I believe
more than two?
We feel that we could handle those that come forward. I mean, obviously, because we do not have a NID currently in the city, we're not exactly sure what they entail, but certainly we would keep City Council abreast of what we're finding from an implementation standpoint and what the city's responsibilities are. Certainly, City Council is the final authority as to the creation of a NID, and so if you felt that there was too much staff time or any other reasons, you would have the ability to not approve the creation of a NID.
Is there a way possibly to, to pass that cost on if we needed to? I mean, through this process. I mean, I don't know if that would create a conflict, but that's the only concern I've got with removing the cap.
There has been some discussion among, just in briefings with the commissioners about that cost, and if we were to look at it as one of the costs on the fee structure through the planning division, that would have to be something that we would look at as part of that fee structure that comes before you for consideration.
Yeah, that would be my only concern. Again, I'm sensitive to unfunded mandates, having worked for the state prior to coming here and having to deal with the state after coming here, and if we're going to have to set these structures up to where these neighborhood improvement districts kind of pay their own way for the improvements that they want, if we're going to remove the caps, we might have to be cognizant of the amount of staff time it might take, and may have to figure out some kind of a fee, to assess on that.
And I think once we go through this process and establish the Downtown South Neighborhood Improvement District, we'll be better positioned to provide you with specific information on what it takes from a staff perspective.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. That's all I had.
Okay.
Commissioner Stewart?
You want me to go ahead and make a recommendation? Does anybody got?
Well, Commissioner Diamond has an amendment that is part of the package, and then you have an amendment, so his is first in time. So Commissioner Diamond, what's your pleasure? We can either accept your amendment, and Commissioner Stewart can offer his as an alternative or a substitute amendment, or did you want to offer yours, or we want to move directly to Commissioner Stewart's? Or
Thank you, Mayor. I think Commissioner Stewart's is probably more comprehensive and probably deals with some more issues. So I'm going to defer offering my amendment.
Okay, I don't know if yours is offered or not, but Commissioner Diamond withdraws his amendment. We'll move on to Commissioner Stewart's amendment.
Thank you, Mayor. My recommendation is that, based upon our conversations last time and working with the staff this past week, to create really three different options. One option is the option that gives guideline to the community based upon what our original recommendation was last meeting, and that was the revenue assessment, size of parcel, those types of things that we talked about before, which we think is a good guideline for us to use. The second is actually option 3 is that the main streets are also brought into this. And then the third would be based upon what Commissioner Diamond had recommended, that if you're financially feasible and you're appropriate size, in other words, if you've got an exploratory committee that's going to do the kind of work that we're talking about doing, we add a third option which allows that to come in through an exploratory committee pursuant to Section 40.5. By that, basically what we've said is, by removing the caps, we've said, here's a size area, here is the main streets, and then if you're financially feasible, then that's okay too. With that, I'd like to make that recommendation to the, as the amendment.
All right, Commissioner Stewart moves his amendment. Is there a second?
I'll second his amendment.
Second by Commissioner Sheehan. Discussion. Commissioner, let's see, Commissioner Ortiz was first, and then Commissioner Lyman.
Thank you, Mayor. I have a little problem with that, with this no cap. I like the fact that with the Main Street program, we have structure. I'm afraid this, to me, this is almost like gambling. We don't know for certain where we're heading with this, how much it's going to cost us. I like to see some structure, and the Main Street program offers us that. At least it has somebody there who's going to be looking after how the community comes together and how we develop. I think just going blank like this, I think it's going to end up costing us more money to help whoever is interested in becoming an NID. Hopefully, we won't have too many people or too many communities coming at once, but how about if everybody comes, all of a sudden we have X amount of people applying for this, or communities, I should say. How are we going to handle that? I just don't like the idea of uncertainty. I like to have something structure that gives us some direction here. That's why I like possibly, instead of 2, maybe 3, increase the cap, but still allowing for most programs to come through the Main Street program.
Mayor?
Commissioner Stewart.
Yeah, I understand your concern. The issue is it economically feasible, financially feasible. What I heard from the council last time was, look, as long as it's financially feasible, we ought to go ahead and move forward with it. And philosophically, I tend to agree with that. I think the idea of continuing to keep option 1 in the process was to be able to say by ordinance, this is the kind of thing we're looking for. But as Commissioner Diamond said last time, what if there are 49 parcels as opposed to 50 parcels? What if there are 90 acres as opposed to 100 acres? Then we have this secondary option now that says, yes, there is a financially feasible way that you can move forward with it. As long as it's financially feasible, I'm not sure that we ought to limit any of these. There's 30 in the state as far as we know. And so, I understand your concern, although I think these criteria will, by definition, limit anybody coming in, not expanding that option.
Mayor.
Commissioner Ortiz.
Thank you, sir. This 30 in the state, do they all work through a Main Street program, or do they just work through, it's just NID?
Kyle, you did the research on that?
Actually, none of them that we know of operate in Orlando. That Orlando Main Street is something that, as far as I know, are we the only ones in the state that?
We're the only southeast urban center that has Main Street program.
Good for us.
There are some others throughout the state that are associated with Main Street groups, but not a majority. There's not a majority that are associated with Main Streets throughout the state. I would just also add, Mayor and Commissioners, that the process as defined through the enabling ordinance does require them to go through an exploratory committee process, which is a pretty intense process. If you look at when we started the process with Downtown South and Orlando Health, it certainly has taken some time. I would be surprised if we had groups that weren't serious even trying to embark on this process, because it's pretty cumbersome on the district itself to even maneuver through it.
Okay.
Commissioner Ortiz? Yes.
Thank you, sir.
Commissioner Lyman.
Thank you. I'm one of those people who don't believe that we should have to go through Main Street at all. If you have a Main Street in your district and that's happening, it's already proven that we don't have to have it. I would support the exploratory committee and have any other structure, but I don't believe that, I don't have a Main Street in my district, and I do not wish to be excluded because of that. So I do not want to support any amendment that would exclusively give the NIDs to Main Street. I just think that's dangerous and it's not necessary.
Commissioner Sheehan.
Well, I just seconded it for the sake of discussion, because again, I do have a concern with things coming to us so late and not being able to chance to review it, especially when I've worked so closely with the groups involved and the principals involved on crafting this over a long period of time. And I just have a concern with with the way this is late breaking. And if my colleagues have concerns, I mean, I want to empower the mainstreams, but at the same time, I thought we're not being exclusionary here, so I'm not going to support it just because, I have that concern as well. So again, this is kind of what you do when you do it on day out, you're going to get sausage. So yeah, it would have been nice to have had this up front a little bit earlier.
Mayor,
Yeah, Brooke.
can I clarify just a couple of points? I want to make sure that we've been clear regarding how the amendment would work. It would actually, I think to some degree, hit on every concern that you as individual commissioners have expressed, with the exception of the cap. This provides an opportunity for 3 avenues for a group to pursue a NID. 1, you're either a Main Street group. 2, you meet certain level of thresholds, the same thresholds that were in the original ordinance, able to generate $200,000 a year, certain number of parcels, certain size, et cetera. Or 3, if you can't meet that threshold test or you're not a Main Street designated area, then you have the ability to pursue a neighborhood improvement district by the virtue of going through the exploratory committee process. If you go through that process as a collective group and are able to demonstrate that you are able to generate enough revenue through the NID to achieve whatever goals you want that are identified to be achieved in that district, then you too have the ability to establish a NID. And I think the idea of that came out of the last city council meeting, where it was expressed that we've got the Main Street groups, we know who those are, we've got some of these other areas that we know would meet the thresholds, but what do we do about other districts that may be out there that we're just not thinking of, or they're not coming to the forefront of our mind? How do we make sure that they're protected and have the opportunity to pursue this as well? And this third test provides them with that opportunity. So I just wanted to clarify that this amendment doesn't require you to be a Main Street in order to pursue a NID.
And Mayor, I was fully aware of that. I just want to make for the record, to make sure it's clear. Thank you.
Okay, I wasn't clear.
Okay. And ultimately, the city council is the final decision maker on this, so we aren't creating a by right situation. We're creating a process that lays out some guidelines that say, if you're Main Street or you have this criteria, you have that criteria, you likely would be eligible for a NID, but you have to go through the process and you ultimately have to get the approval of the city commission. And I suspect, having watched the SODO one develop, that these will be fairly serious projects where there's a lot of community participation. In all likelihood, the district commissioner would be involved from the beginning wherever a NID were to develop. But we have the safety that there aren't people that can go out there willy-nilly and create them, and then we're stuck with them. We're ultimately going to have the decision on whether we think it's prudent to have a NID in a particular area or not, whatever the criteria ends up being. Commissioner Diamond, then Commissioner Ortiz.
Thank you. My initial reaction to the amendment is that it does provide more flexibility, which is what I was focused on at the last meeting. And as Commissioner Stewart said, he'd hate to see somebody with 49 acres instead of 50 and not be able to do something if it was otherwise a good idea. Going back to the Main Street concept, though, would all of the main streets that we currently have meet the criteria? If you had to say, is it financially feasible? Is the land inside of the main streets appropriate, and does it work?
The 5 existing main streets that we have, no, not all of those would meet the thresholds that are identified within this enabling ordinance. Audubon Garden District is a good example of one that is extremely small, that would not be able to meet those thresholds.
How would you handle that then if they said we want to do a neighborhood improvement district?
As a main street, they're exempt from, through this ordinance, they're exempt from having to meet those thresholds.
And what about when new Main Street programs get approved, when people want to do new Main Street programs, would that be part of the thinking on whether or not they can come in as a Main Street program? Is that they would then be entitled to get into the Neighborhood Improvement District program?
If they were a Main Street district within the city, they would have the ability to go through the process to establish a NID as a Main Street, but again would require the same process that everybody else has to go through, which is the exploratory committee process that's ultimately at the discretion of City Council.
And if you had someone trying to go through under the Main Street part of this, at what point would the decision be made on whether or not to approve it, and what could the reasons be to approve it or not approve it?
Commissioner, keep in mind, as the mayor mentioned, you always have the opportunity to decide, this council decide that any district, even if they meet one of those 3 options, just aren't appropriate for whatever reason. It's a purely legislative decision on your part. So if you look at it and you say, look, you are an Orlando Main Street district, we have designated you as an Orlando Main Street area, but there's something about your district. It's too small, it's not cohesive enough, or whatever it is, you could always say, as a city council, that a NID would not be appropriate here. But otherwise, as we've written this particular amendment here, there would be, there's a provision that says if you are in fact an Orlando Main Street area designated by City Council, if your boundaries are going to be coterminous with that of a neighborhood improvement district, you don't have to meet those other 2 standards. You don't have to meet the strict standards, the numerical standards that we placed in the original ordinance. You also don't have to meet those softer diamond proposals, the next option down, or the third. You're in just by virtue of being an Orlando Main Street area. Now, that doesn't mean that you all have to adopt an ordinance making them a neighborhood improvement district. It just says for purposes of the first sort of filter that you're allowed to move through the process, go through with an exploratory committee and so on.
So you're saying even if you are a Main Street and you come forward with an idea to do this, the City Council can still say, no, you are not approved?
Yes, sir.
And there's no requirement that there be certain reasons, or that, because I know sometimes when you get into the decision-making process, you get some things like the quasi-judicial hearings where I know, legal affairs department's very careful about what is said and the reasons for making a decision, and that's done because you want to be careful. So what I want to know is, is this something where this is going to take away the ability of the City Council to say no to a Main Street program that may not be feasible?
This is a purely legislative discretionary decision. You have all the discretion in the world because you are creating a new government agency. You're not taking an application from somebody like in the land use context, where someone that meets the provisions of the comprehensive plan and the land development code is presumed to have met the requirements of getting a particular decision made or land development order, in which case your discretion is confined in this quasi-judicial context. This is purely legislative. If you just think it's not a good idea to have a dependent special district in this part of town, you can make that decision. In other words, this is not constraining your decision. It's simply saying, as an initial matter, staff is going to look at these things and say, look, you can proceed if you meet the quantitative standards in Part 1, the Diamond standards in Part 2, or you're an Orlando Main Street district.
Okay, and one other question. As far as the districts that might be set up, they might have a certain purpose, they might make sense when they're set up, but maybe not so much after some time passes, a few years or whatever. How do these get terminated?
Under the state statute, under the local government neighborhood improvement districts, which are the only kind that are being authorized under this ordinance. Okay, remember there's different kinds of neighborhood improvement districts. Under the local government NID, which are the ones we're proposing here, the City Council, as the governing board of that neighborhood improvement district, can always terminate them for whatever reason. Okay, So at any time in the future, you come back and say, this just is not working out for whatever reason, you can terminate the district. Now, there will always be loose ends that have to be tied up, but those are things that the city can do after the neighborhood improvement district has been dissolved. If there are bills to be paid or planning efforts to be continued, those are things that the city could wind down, just like it would wind down any other enterprise it was undertaking.
Okay, thanks. Commissioner Ortiz?
Thank you, sir. Let me make it clear, I'm a big advocate of NID. I love it. It's just that I want to make sure that we're structured right. And I appreciate the comments of my colleagues and questions, because I'm learning just as much as everybody else, I guess. But I do have a concern with this proposal, and is option number 3. Do we have any guidelines and how much, when we talk about enough revenue, how much is enough revenue? I just want to know that for certain, whoever proposes an NID district is going to be successful, and we won't have to, from this side of the house, have to catch up on, or try to have to bail somebody out. What would be the specifics, guidelines with those that do not meet the other criteria?
Commissioner, that would be determined through their specific exploratory process. So you may have, for example, a group of property owners that wants to establish a NID that only has a couple of inexpensive items that they want to cover in their district, whether it be landscaping or something else, where $5,000 a year is enough for them to implement those goals. Other districts may have more expensive goals that they want to implement, and so we would really have to just look at that on a case-by-case basis and whether or not they can truly accomplish what it is that they're seeking
So
to
with
do.
those, we're not going to have the limitations on acreage or property. We would just evaluate what kind of needs they have in order to establish that particular need? Is that what you're telling me?
City staff would be involved with the exploratory committee process, so we would be able to help guide them. And certainly if they came in with a whole list of capital items, very expensive capital items that they wanted to do, we could very quickly do the math for them based on the parcel information and provide them with some guidance as to what they would be looking at potentially raising on an annual basis. So I think at the staff level, we'll be able to help steer people in the right direction.
So if one block with 10 businesses want to do something like this, they would be able to do it under these guidelines?
If City Council approved it, and again, you would be asked to look at their exploratory committee report and what they identified as the list of items on their to-do list, and whether you felt that those were worthy of establishing
What
an
would be, have you guys judged what would be the administrative cost for us to determine if X, Y, and Z communities or groups want to, because under those guidelines, then anybody can come over. I mean, any particular groups can come over and say, let's become an NID. How much is that going to cost us to evaluate every single time somebody comes over?
The upfront analysis is, running parcel data and doing some GIS work is pretty inexpensive. And we do that every day as it is now for property owners. So the exploratory committee process itself is obviously a little more intense, but I do believe we've got the staff available to do that. And I don't think, because of what we've seen happen on a state level, remember there's less than 30 in the entire state, I think we would all be shocked if we had a plethora of these moving forward at the same time.
But those do have certain guidelines. Do they have guidelines like the ones that we're providing here on option number 3?
Do you want to speak to that? Guidelines on the...
Or are their guidelines a little bit stricter, like the other two, the regional two?
In the other cities that I've reviewed their ordinance, I don't see any of them that have their own guidelines, minimum restrictions. They just say neighborhood improvement districts are permitted, and that's it. Okay. And if folks come in a particular district and want to create one, the city or county just considers it without any of these restrictions laid down in their particular code. Now, what some cities do that have districts that have ad valorem taxing power is that they say that the governing board of the NID, which is usually the county commission or the city commission, can only approve that ad valorem levy by some supermajority vote. But other than that, they don't have these criteria or anything like it laid out in their code. They just let anybody proceed forward and ask. And if the county or the city simply doesn't think it's a good idea, they just say, find some other way to do what you're looking to do. And there are other alternatives for folks to do some of these things, whether it be special assessments through the city or county, or if you're in a county, an MSTU or MSBU, a municipal services taxing unit or a municipal services benefit unit, something that we can't do as a city. So there are other alternatives as well.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you much.
Commissioner Stewart to close.
Yeah, let me go back to our discussions several weeks ago. The intent of this really is just to add that third option together. And what it does for us is allows us to say, we've got the Main Street kind of organization, which is really kind of going after these commercial types businesses. That's already kind of been endorsed by the city council. That was in the original agreement. The second option would be called option one, which would be the original recommendation. And the third is just to say if there's anything else that goes along the same line. So what I've done with this basically is just say, look, we got three options. If you take out and make option two the primary option, where everybody's got to come in an exploratory committee, I do believe you send a signal that anybody with 10 parcels can kind of come in. I think the option one, if we don't anybody that actually even falls into that option, it does give us scope of kind of what we're looking for. We're looking for something that's broader in scope and gives a better direction, even but by ordinance. Now, so my recommendation is these three together, and then if this was one of these three options, and it catches, I think, the flavor and the intent of our discussion 2 weeks ago. And with that, I'll close.
Commissioner Ortiz?
I'm sorry, just quick reply. Why don't we just leave it at 1 and 2 and eliminate 3? Or just do 3 and we don't need 1 and 2?
Well, the current proposal for a neighborhood improvement district is not coterminous with an Orlando Main Street area. And so I don't know that you could have just 3. Eliminating 3, what you would have is some small Orlando Main Street areas, such as, for example, Audubon Park or the Garden District, which may not be able to meet those first 2, but otherwise might be appropriate for a neighborhood improvement district. The point of leaving all 3 of those in is to at least give you the option in the future of making that determination that it is appropriate in that particular setting. You can always say no. You can always say no.
Thank you.
Commissioner Stewart, having closed on his amendment, all in favor of the amendment indicate so by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed?
No.
I didn't quite catch that. I think it was 4-3.
What was the amendment?
This is on the amendment. So those in favor indicate so by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed?
No.
It's 4-3. It passes. Okay. Now on the ordinance as amended, all in favor of the ordinance as amended indicate so by saying aye. Aye. Those, Joanne, you can't vote here. Maybe that was 4-4 the last time. I'm not sure now.
I heard that vote. We'll count it. We'll take your votes.
Okay. And if you're going to speak at general appearance, if you could get a card, not yet, but get a card from the clerk and just fill it out, okay? All right. All in favor indicate so by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? All right. So that passes unanimously as amended. All right, thank you. Good work, Kyle and Brooke. Let's move to ordinances on first reading. Number 1.
An ordinance of the City of Orlando, Florida, vacating, closing, and abandoning portions of the north side of West Pine Street right-of-way, generally located north of West Church Street, south of West Central Boulevard, east of North Cherry Avenue, west of South Division Avenue, and comprised of about .25 acres, as requested by an adjacent property owner, providing for severability, correction of scrivener's errors, and an effective date.
Move approval. Second.
Motion by Commissioner Lineham, second by Commissioner Stewart. Is there anyone from the public that would like to testify on this matter? Discussion among commissioners, hearing none. All in favor of the motion indicate so by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, and so the motion carries. Okay, I have made an error. I need a motion to reconsider the vote by which we passed the NIDS ordinance. Is there a motion to do that?
Move approval.
Second. Okay, all in favor of reconsidering the vote by which we passed that? I didn't take public testimony, so I just need to open the public hearing on that.
There's a motion.
All in favor of that indicate so by saying aye.
Aye.
All right, the ordinance is back before us. Is there anyone from the public that would like to testify on this matter? Okay, I need, I guess, a motion to approve the ordinance again then.
As amended.
As amended.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Stewart, second by Commissioner Lineham. All in favor of the motion indicate so by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? So the motion carries again. Okay, that is the end of our official agenda for today's meeting. Thank you for tuning in at home and those of you who joined us here in council chambers.